science fiction really fiction, or is it just the future waiting to happen? Author Frank Herbert says it's a little bit of both. His books, under the Dune title, takes us to a strange planet where life and death is determined by a spice, which is carefully doled out by a leader who is a humanoid in the process of becoming a worm. Now, before I ask you about the state of that, Frank, why is there a tendency for people to chuckle when they hear what I just said, to sneer, to smirk?
Well, I think it makes people uncomfortable, the idea that a human being can become something other than a human being, especially something mindless out of the depths. I'm very heavily imbued with Jungian psychology, so I think that we do have a sense of the mindless animal in the depths of all of us.
But science fiction, when people say science fiction, they automatically go,
Yeah, but I write science fiction for people who don't read science fiction. And people who read science fiction also.
But you were just telling me that you were going after that general readership.
Oh, yes.
But you were frankly a little bit surprised when it went over as big as it did. Why?
Well, I didn't... You don't wait for that. You go on to do another story. And then when it happened big, and I was very surprised by how big it came along.
You've said science fiction writing can have a missionary impact. Could you elaborate on that for me a little bit?
Well, I think it first has to be entertaining. Because if it's not entertaining, nobody's going to read it. I put a pot of message in there with a mess of pottage.
What is the message? What is the statement that you're attempting to make here?
Don't trust leaders to always be right. I worked to create a leader in this book who would be really an attractive, charismatic person for all the good reasons, not for any bad reasons. Mm-hmm. Then power comes to him. He makes decisions. Some of his decisions made for millions of people, millions upon millions of people, don't work out too well.
In a general sense, not in a specific one about Leto and about the planet Arrakis, but in a very general sense, do you make this statement because you're disenchanted with the way others are viewing the future or preparing for the future?
Well, I think that our society was formed out of distrust for government. And we seem to have lost that distrust of government. I kid around and I say that my favorite president in recent years has been Richard Nixon, because he taught us to distrust government.
What is it, that government is a shared illusion, and when the myth dies,
the
government disappears?
That's right.
Religion, government, other institutions, do you see them in any way preparing for what Frank Herbert sees as the vision of the future?
No, I have a very passionate concern for posterity. Another thing upon which this nation was founded, with a decent concern for posterity. And unfortunately, posterity doesn't vote.
Dune is going to become a Dino De Laurentiis movie.
That's right.
That Frank Herbert's written the screenplay for. Are we to expect another Star Wars type spectacle?
I really am expecting much more of a David Lynch movie. David has really written the screenplay. I hope he's using a lot of the stuff that I gave him, but I haven't seen the screenplay. It'll be ready next Friday. We are expecting the movie in a year, at the end of '83.
How many more Dunes to come?
At least one more.
Good enough. Frank Herbert, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We do nasty things to our leaders. We shoot them in the streets of Dallas and hang them on pieces of wood at Golgotha. We fondly say that in the United States we separate church and state. That's an asinine statement. I am a political animal, and I've really never left journalism. I'm writing about the current scene. The metaphors are there. I'm writing about the political ecology, the religious ecology, the social ecology, and the physical ecology of our world. And I think you do not separate any one part of this from the others. You don't separate mind and body and understand the human being.
In this exclusive Walden Tape Special Edition, we're proud to present author Frank Herbert and filmmaker David Lynch discussing the making of Dune, the motion picture. Following some insights into the filmmaking process and challenges faced by writer-director David Lynch, Walden Tate spoke directly to Frank Herbert about beliefs, values, and his writing. Join us now for a truly unique experience with two magnificent artists of our time. Listen, learn, and enjoy.
Walden Books is proud to have the opportunity to speak with author Frank Herbert and director David Lynch. David Lynch is not only the director of Dune, the motion picture, but also the author of the screenplay. And right beside me is Frank Herbert, the author of the book, and of course all of the subsequent books which have become so immensely popular. The first question that I wanted to ask was of the filmmaker. Did you feel threatened by the fact that so many readers had no doubt seen Dune so many times before they'll have the opportunity to come into the theater and see your Dune?
What was the question?
No, you got to be either stupid or crazy, to do something like this. And I live in fear 24 hours a day.
So you're definitely cognizant of the stature.
Yes, but
Why don't you ask me the question? Because I've seen the film.
no, somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah.
And someone had to do it. And the day I finished reading the book, I met with Dino in his office, and I was so high from finishing the book, so thrilled with what I'd read. I signed on, and I didn't really know it was going to be 3.5 of this type of a year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll let Frank tell you what he thinks.
Dino De Laurentiis came to you or brought you to Dune, the project, before you were even really.
I never even heard the word Dune.
He thought it was June.
I thought he said June.
Well, I do want to ask Frank the question about the film, what he thinks of it, and that's kind of a loaded question because Frank is a filmmaker himself, something I didn't know until today. So you're not working with someone who's not aware of
documentaries.
But
Different thing.
you're aware of the process
Oh, yeah.
of the visual medium, and you're happy with the film.
Well, I get asked a specific question a lot of times. If the settings, the scenes that I saw in David's film match my original imagination, the things that I projected in my imagination, and I must tell you that some of them do, precisely. Some of them don't, and some of them are better. Which is what you would expect of artists such as David and Tony Masters. And I'm delighted with that. I mean, why not take it and improve on it visually? As far as I'm concerned, the film is a visual feast. I would love to have some of the scenes as stills to frame and have around me. They're beautiful.
So you feel there was a synergy between the two of you, the director, the screenwriter, and the actual creator of the concept?
Synergy? You mean the sum is more than the parts?
That's right. That something better came out of the two of you working together.
I think so.
What was
more than any other
Frank's
Islamic
participation?
ritual activity.
I'm asking David this question.
Unity
Well, I'm
in the
among all
process.
people and
I
equality.
signed on to do Dune, and
The theater.
The Hajj set humanity in motion. For the first time since the reign of Alexander the Great, cultures and caravans now flowed freely. Borders closed for 1,000 years opened.
Both ideas and goods went back and forth over incredible distances. Since every Muslim is enjoined once in his life to visit Mecca, it means that there were caravans carrying goods and pilgrims and ideas and people. And they all met together in Mecca once a year, and then things would radiate back home. So if there was an invention that was discovered in Samarkand, it could be within the year that it would be known in Cordoba.
Where pilgrims trod, traders soon followed. Muhammad himself had been a man of commerce, and now the spread of his message brought with it the spread of trade and the Islamic way of life.
trade was incredibly important in the Islamic world simply because of its geographical position. It was, and still is, between West, what we call the West, and what people always called the East. So it was a natural land bridge connecting China to Europe.
In only 2 centuries, Islam had extended